push a highly empathetic person to their absolute limit. Something strange happens. They don't break. They wake up. Because here's the truth nobody tells you. These people almost never shatter. Ever. Before I go further, sit with two questions. First, is high empathy a gift or a curse? Second, does high empathy signal high self-esteem or low self-esteem? Hold your answers. We're coming back to them. Highly empathetic people share three traits. First, they're gentle. They hold back. In every relationship, they're the one who knows where the line is and never crosses it. Second, when they get hurt, their first instinct isn't anger. It's observation. They scan the other person's emotions. They read the room before they react. Third, when conflict erupts, they don't counterattack. They study the person who started it. What's their state of mind? What's their motive? What are they actually after? They'll cry over a stray cat. They'll feel genuine grief watching humans suffering from a distance. But they will never, not once, explain or apologize for their own existence. They can connect with any living thing on this planet. The one thing they cannot stomach? Fake people. On the surface, they seem refined, elegant even. Sometimes they look almost fragile. But in every relationship, they're playing a role nobody assigned them, silent emotional collectors. They spend their entire lives quietly observing, absorbing, tracking every emotional signal everyone around them puts out. By the end of this video, you'll know three things. Why these seemingly soft people are actually the strongest ones in the room. How to awaken if you're trapped in your own darkness. And if you're one of them, exactly when the most important moment of your life is going to arrive. It's a long video. But if you suspect you're a high empathy, high self-esteem person, stay with me. You need to hear all of it. First, you need to relearn what you think you know about yourself. Most people get self-esteem completely wrong. We assume someone with high self-esteem is sensitive, paranoid, easily offended, always keeping score. In psychology, that's actually the textbook definition of low self-esteem. So what does high self-esteem actually look like? 3 sentences. That's it. Sentence 1, none of your business. Sentence 2, none of my business. Sentence 3, whatever. If that landed, type correct in the comments. I'll continue. Here's what you need to understand about those quiet empaths who keep swallowing their pain. They're not blind to reality. They see reality too clearly. That's the problem. What does that mean? They remember every single person who ever hurt them. They can decode the real intention behind every polite phrase you throw at them. They can map every emotional current flowing through a relationship. And they pretend they don't see any of it. They know exactly who's draining them, who's using them, who's betraying them. And they still choose to give those people more chances until the day they hit the wall. You need to understand this. When you're dealing with a high empathy, high self-esteem person, you're not facing a passive victim. You're facing an absolute strategist hiding in plain sight. So how sharp are these people? Let me put it this way. I've met many of them. Some can meet a total stranger and within minutes, pinpoint that person's childhood trauma, their relationship patterns, their specific anxiety triggers. Accuracy rate, over 95%. Think about what that means. While a normal person is still forming a first impression, this person seems nice. The empath has already mapped out how that stranger was treated as a child, what's holding them hostage right now, and what keeps them up at night. How do they see all this? It's not a superpower. It's simpler than that. They've spent their entire lives feeling the world more intensely than most people ever will. But here's the part nobody warns you about. This gift of yours, it's also your greatest curse. Why? Because this world does not let someone who sees the truth live in peace. Every time you speak the truth, here's what you hear back. You're too sensitive. You're overthinking this. Why are you always so dark? They didn't mean it that way. You're imagining things. Can you just be normal for once? They speak the truth. Again and again, and again and again. The people around them deny it, mock it, punish them for it. Eventually, they learn one thing. Shut up. This is why they sometimes look weak. It's not weakness. It's exhaustion. Those highly empathetic people who've been silenced for too long, they're not passive. They're defeated. Years of being told their intuition is wrong makes them stop trusting it. They see something off. They tell themselves, don't say it. It's not your place anyway. They start feeling ashamed of seeing what others can't. But you don't need to feel ashamed. Because here's the thing about truth. It doesn't vanish. It just sinks. 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, or until you finally grow up. Every judgment you made that got denied. Every gut feeling you had that got laughed at. Every truth you choked down. It's all still there, packed deep inside you, waiting for the detonator. So when does the detonator go off? It takes one thing. A brutal lesson delivered by reality itself. And almost always, that lesson comes from the same source. Betrayal by the person you trusted most. Only the betrayal of someone you gave deep empathy to can truly wake you up. Don't panic at the word betrayal. It doesn't have to be some massive catastrophe. It can be one detail, one sentence, one facial expression, one careless choice. And in that moment, every truth you've spent years burying erupts all at once. But here's the real gut punch. It's not the betrayal itself that destroys them. It's the sudden realization. I saw every single sign. I felt every single red flag the moment it appeared. I spent years personally shoving those truths back into the ground. In that instant, the disappointment they feel toward themselves hits a peak most people will never reach. And what does that peak look like? Not screaming, not rage, not losing control. It's an eerie, surgical calm. They sit there, and like a doctor naming every lesion on a scan, they begin to speak. Objectively, precisely, one sentence after another. Everything they saw, everything they felt, everything they suppressed. No emotion, no hatred, but every word is a blade. Jung called this process shadow integration. What it means is this. They finally stopped suppressing the version of themselves the world trained them to hide. All the wisdom they were told was too much. All the intuition they were shamed for. All the insight, the perception, the raw judgment. Everything labeled dark or too sensitive. It all gets pulled back into their personality. Fused back in. In that moment, they become whole. And the transformation is irreversible. They will never again apologize for setting a boundary. They will never again doubt their own judgment. They will never again feel sorry for seeing what others refuse to see. That kid who spent a lifetime being trained into oversensitivity, that kid stands up inside them for the very first time. What happens next? Jung's records are clear on this. Usually within months, their entire life gets rewritten. They cut off the relationships that drain them, decisively, cleanly, without looking back. They rebuild their life according to their own true desires. They become something new, a selective empath. What is a selective empath? They still have that near supernatural perception. It doesn't go away, but they stop pouring it indiscriminately onto every person who walks into their life. They start choosing. With genuine people, they're still tender, still devoted, still all in. With manipulators, energy thieves, users, they pull away, instinctively, instantly, with zero hesitation. No second chances. And here's the strangest part. The manipulators, they vanish on their own. They feel something is off, the way shadows recoil from sunlight. They can't articulate what changed. They just know. This person is no longer available for exploitation. Jung wrote something about this. The awakened empath does not need to announce their power. Others sense it from the depths of their own being. Clinically, these awakened empaths develop a psychological defense that's nearly impenetrable. They detect manipulation before it takes shape. They dissolve harm before it lands. They still have love for the honest, still have compassion, still have warmth. They didn't turn cold. They turned clear. They kept the ability to feel everything and gained the wisdom to choose who deserves it. That is what real strength looks like. So I'll leave you with one more line from Jung. The empath's sensitivity was never a weakness. It was a form of power this world has long misunderstood. If you've spent your life being called too sensitive, too emotional, too much in your head, you carry the architecture of a psychological powerhouse inside you. It's just waiting for the right moment to go live. And that moment will come. The only question is this: will you walk through your awakening soberly, deliberately, on your own terms? Or will you wait for life to corner you and force you awake? Those kids they called oversensitive, they were never wrong about anything. They were just waiting for the moment they finally dared to believe themselves. And that moment, that exact moment, is the most important one of your entire life.